I'm Storm Tracker Charles Peak, and it's the anniversary of Hurricane Helene's impacts on western North Carolina. Just a couple of weeks after this impacted that area, I was there in Yancey County, North Carolina, an area that was very hard hit. And I rode around with the sheriff of Yancey County, Shane Hilliard, and he was telling me that 10% of his sheriff's department actually lost their homes. For a period of time, they were even cut off for communication, and they didn't even know if some of the deputies had made it through the storm. This area was heavily impacted, and we had to go on a 4x4 just to be able to get around and up into some of the hardest hit areas. So take a look at what it looked like back then a year ago.
Bridge was here, the big concrete bridge, and I mean, paved road right up through there.
You know, you were mentioning there, and this gentleman over here just said the same thing. Says, I don't know how some of the people, it's changed their lives forever.
It has. That's right. People's lost so much.
Now, 1 year later, much has changed in the area. A lot of the roads are clear. Didn't have to go on a 4x4 to take a tour of it with the sheriff. You see a lot of the homes have been rebuilt. Some of the bridges have been repaired, but there's still a lot of damage, a lot of repairs going on. Some people still living in campers, and even one lady I talked to in a school bus while she's waiting to get a home that she's going to have her new home. But so lots has gone on and lots has changed, but in some cases, it almost looks like it did a year ago. So I went back with Sheriff Hilliard, once again, taking a tour of those same areas that we drove through almost a year ago. And this is what we saw.
I think the biggest challenge is, getting rebuilt and get help and funding and everything that we need to get back to as close to normal as we can. There's been a lot of help, but there's still a lot of people needing help.
What would you say, coming up on a year, the percentages of recovery that we're sort of at right now?
I mean, it's hard to say. Some things like roadways and the electric grid have moved a lot faster than I would have thought. But then, a lot of homes are just now starting to be rebuilt this summer. So you do have a lot of homes that are just now coming out of the ground to be rebuilt, and then still some waiting to start the rebuild process. So it's kind of hard to gauge.
Obviously, with the general area tourism dollars being big coming into the fall season, do you feel most of the infrastructure needed for the tourists are sort of back to some semblance of normal?
Somewhat. It's still, our section of Blue Ridge Parkway, from my understanding, was the hardest hit. The section that lies in Yancey County, that connects us. Mount Mitchell is in Yancey County. So that section is not open, and it's not going to open anytime soon. So that's definitely going to have an impact on, the fall leaf season and tourism, not being able to access Mount Mitchell from Yancey County.
As you can see, it looks much different than it did a year ago in many of the places, but in some of them, it's like a snapshot, still looking like it did that year ago. So progress has been made. I got to know Sheriff Hilliard and his family. His mother and dad lost their home of 50 years, and his grandmother right next to it lost her home of 70 years. She's 92 at that time, 93 now. His aunt right there on the same area lost her home. And I got to know them and just really fall in love with his whole family, that whole community. When I drove around, Sheriff Hilliard gave me one of these hats that says Yancey Strong. And that's the way they're approaching it at this 1 year mark is they're still strong and resilient people. They're mountain people, and they're going to get beyond this. But don't let it fool you. There's still a lot of hurt and pain there. Some of the people lost everything, some lost family members, and the emotional toll that's still there, even 1 year later, is unmeasurable. You know, these kind of disasters leave marks not just for weeks and months, but years and decades. And in some cases, it never gets fixed. But Yancey County and that area of western North Carolina is doing everything they can. They're mountain people, they're strong people. And I want to tell you, if you could, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. But sometimes we need to put feet to our prayers. And so maybe there's still volunteer needs that are there. Donations are still needed. Rebuilding Hollers, come hell or high water, is an organization that Sheriff Hilliard put me in touch with that is really helping a lot of those communities there. But it's still a long road to recovery. But they are on the road, and that is a good thing to hear. So keep them in mind. And unfortunately, we have another tropical system with rainfall in the forecast, even to add to the emotional hurt that is there. And I know that at times, even a rainstorm can bring about fears and remembrances of what has happened. In Yancey County, North Carolina, I'm Charles P.